Oh, I hope we went live then. Let's try again. Hello, welcome, Croeso. Thank you for your patience and a few technical issues. But we are back. Yes, you can see it on screen. For Britain's Hidden History number 113. Wow, and they said it would never last. Take it away, Arnie. Alright, yep, sorry about the delay there. I don't know what happened. In the end, we had to reboot the computer completely. It just would not let us copy something into this code you have to put in and all that. It just wouldn't work at all. So, right, I am back now, yes. Marcel was first on the first time round, so thank you, Marcel, well done. And there were some really interesting questions, which I've tried hard not to lose by having to delete anything, but there we go. In the end, we had to just reboot the whole thing, so thank you, still there. Anyway, loads of good stuff tonight, because someone asked a question, and I haven't got the name here, unfortunately, but they asked, is there any evidence the Great Floods in British mythology, in the legends and all that? Well, there is, and Wilson of Blackett have written about it, and I'm going to be sharing that tonight, so it's fantastic. It's in the Mabinogi, and it's very clear, but it's quite clever how they've worked it out, so thank you for that. I'm going to clear some space. I've been having the dictionaries out and everything today, so my desk is full of a bit of tango from Arnie B there. I recommend this company again. I don't get any commission or anything from Gyan, Gyan, but these are brilliant. These are the old 1803 dictionaries. And they're fantastic. I've also got the little one that Alan Wilson uses a lot as well. Get that one. Thank you very much. Someone found that for me. And a few other dictionaries. I hadn't realised before I got into this. Oh, I love that bit. Thank you, Arnie. Is how I'm just giving people a chance to click on again. Right, okay, because they're... lovely. Thank you, Arnie. Hope people can see you there. It's got us in the mood. Right, because it's so hot, isn't it? Wow, it's lovely. Beautiful. Don't be like, it's not dangerous weather. It's lovely weather. This is summer, so I'm looking forward to this. Reminds me, it's not that many years ago, I was living in Abu Dhabi, playing golf in like 46, 47 degrees, so don't panic yet, okay? Right, we are all back, Meg, yes. So apologies to those who left comments. Hi, Hugh. Good to see you online. Steve Franco, Mark Austin, Johnny Enigma. I'm getting a weird sense of deja vu. Yeah, it's the second go at this one this week. Amazing. I think it's almost 500 videos, and that's never happened before. Just couldn't copy and paste the code that you need from one to go into the other thing to make it work. But there you go. So I'm sorry we lost that conversation. There was some good stuff there. Tech report, yes. The Nina, you could hear the ambulances and all this kind of stuff. Right, let's relax. Let's say hello to a few more people. Brad's there. Good to see Gary Taylor. Thank you so much. All these people come back week after week after week. It's wonderful. I'm really, really flattered by it. And then new people all the time and growing and growing. Although I noticed last week wasn't as popular as the Jesus program. You put Jesus in the title and whoosh. So here we go. Right, hello everybody. I did spot the one question that was very interesting, because the main story I'm going to talk about with the flood is in the Mabinogi, or which is more commonly known as the Mabinogion. And this, I think, is the most recent edition. Pete Summan, thank you very much for putting me onto this one. He actually gave me this. And it's by Sinead, what's his surname? Sinead Davis. And this is considered the most up-to-date sort of literary version, if you like. You can see that. I have to say it is well written. I enjoy it. It's good fun. And I think Sinead's been on the BBC and stuff doing interviews. I think Sinead was the lady who was on the Time team when they did a thing about the Mabinogi. But, of course, what you know is, disappointingly, they just seem totally unaware, or just do not talk about the fact that a vast amount of the Mabinogion, or the Mabinogi, is actually about astronomical messages. It's about astrology. I know some people get very offended if you say you're an astrologist rather than an astronomer. But in ancient times, the two things went very much hand in glove. And astronomy, the studying of the stars and everything, seemed to be very, very important. And we've got good reasons for thinking we know why. And this comes into the idea of catastrophism. And you've heard of writers like Velikovsky, who talk about history being a series of great catastrophes, some of which are from Collins Beaumont wrote about this actually before Velikovsky did, but that bit gets ignored out of his work for some reason. So what we talk about is massive events causing big changes in our history, rather than being this gradualism, which is the mainstream view. So, this book's a little bit frustrating in many ways, really, because one of the first things it does is point out that it shouldn't be called Mabinogion, it should be called Mabinogi, and yet it still says Mabinogion on the front cover, which is a bit of a disguise on the book, really, to hide it. And the stories have been dressed up as legends and, just myths and children's stories. And that's how it's come down to us today. And that's fortunate in a way, because it wouldn't have been preserved at all. But the real depth of the messages seems to be not even discussed, which is just weird. And if you watch the Time Team programme on not Time Team, what's his name? Lord Smugness, I call it, which isn't very nice, is it? In Our Time, on Thursday mornings, if you go to the BBC In Our Time archive, discussion of Mabinogion, but all they seem to discuss is when it was written, the style of literature, can you place which year, and who, they don't seem to analyse the content. They think it's just silly stories, which are quite good fun, and how people used to behave and stuff like that, completely missing the point of the Mabinogi. I'm going to be doing a lot of this, and what will also be available, I'll show you in a second, I'll show you during the show, I should say, rather than a second, is that going to start making things available as downloads. Now, the first one to explain is that this week I did say that I would make the part 1 and part 2 of Odyssey ready and done for this week's show. I think I first hoped to do it last week. But it's one of those, you call it a can of worms, or you call it a rabbit hole. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the more we look into it. And I got Bob Morgan into it as well. And you know what Bob's like with research. And it's got a life of its own. So part 2 is delayed. It could be a while. And I'll just give a quick idea. It's just welcome to new people as well. To give you an idea, what I normally try and do is a few news stories and updates where you can see what's going on with our history and how it's been messed with, hidden. And you'll find that, just about everything we're taught in schools and now is pretty much invented that started around about the 1700s. And we look at what the old original sources say. So in Britain, that tends to be a lot of the Welsh sources, because the English source is more or less gone. And a lot of the stuff about England is stored in Wales, and about Scotland and about Ireland. So it's not like, it's just all about Wales. It's quite the opposite. It's just that's the repository of the information. And the Welsh language is a survivor from those ancient times. So the Welsh language helps us to interpret things. As you'll see tonight, a lot of it. A lot of the names in the Mabinogi. And one question I immediately saw from Richard, thank you very much for his question. He said, why do the story we're talking about, Bronwen, and now this actually represents the flood, everywhere else is called Branwen. And he's right. I looked in here. She's referred to as Branwen, not Bronwen. I don't know why. I don't know why Wilson and Blackett call her Bronwen when everyone else calls her Branwen. The original Finky, no relation. So either Finky back or not. Been a CADW. All right, some very funny comments on there tonight. Right, okay, so I'll get back onto that. All right, so there's a few other things to cover first. And I love this story because it ties in the whole biblical account, the Noah, all that. And there's a whole other side to it. I mean, this could be a whole book on itself. Yes, what I was saying, so part 1 is now available already. Okay. So I just show you where to go on this one. Share the screen a second. Right, so if you go to Cameroglyphics, or I'll just show my shirt tonight, Cameroglyphics, or Britain's Hidden History, britainshiddenhistory.co.uk. Oh God, I've set myself up now, isn't it? Because I haven't rehearsed this. And Angie's desperately trying to get it up. Where's the downloads, Ange? Books. It's time to start your adventures. You can read about the books that are already available, how to order them, all these kind of things. And then we need to go to the shop. Oh, shop. There we go. Aha, phew. Downloads. Here we go. So you can download. So the books are going to be up. I'll put some origins on there. It's just a couple of pounds, that's all. And it should be there already. Part 1 of the Odyssey. I'll put that up separately, okay? So that'll be available. So everything written by Wilson and Blackett on the subject, which is all about this ancient journey around the world. And one thing which came up, I was chatting with Paul, who's helped me on the editing during the week, and he made Thus Tonight's Bronwyn in the Pub. So if you just go there and click on that, £2, or you just follow it in the show if you might want to have your own copy. And it's being rearranged to fit nicely on the screen is the idea, okay? Well, so we're talking about the Odyssey. I can restart my computer, so I got to boot up everything again now. The PowerPoint was ready, all the stuff I had to go. Was the argument there that I agree with Paul, it's a very good point, was that the argument to show that the journey described by Herodotus is the same journey as the one described by Homer in the Odyssey. He says that it's a little bit of a thin link. And to a certain extent, that's right. I'm not going to dispute that, really. But the point is the same, that this ancient, what the Odyssey describes, what Homer's Odyssey describes, is indeed a journey around the world. It doesn't take, depending how you read the book, 3 to 10 years to get around the Mediterranean. And there's nowhere else this journey will work for. But it works perfectly for a journey around the world. You can see last week's show, for a lot more details about that. Right, it's really thrown me out a bit here now. I need to put that there. Right, excuse me. We all stayed very calm, though. We did, actually. It was pretty good. Right, okay, so let's jump in. Right, so we've got the Great Flood. We'll get onto that in a second. So the Odyssey download. So that I'll come back at the end of the show. You'll see the download will be there for Odyssey Part 1. That's all a bit Wilson and Blackett wrote. And I've added pictures and diagrams and maps to try and illustrate it and examples. And you'll be able to get that yourself. You can watch it on your own computer. I don't know if it'll ever be available as a hardback. Softback, in hard copy, printed. This might be the way forward for getting things out more quickly and sharing the information. All right, obviously it does rely on people paying for a download rather than just whizzing it around for free, but there you go. Right, okay, so let's do a couple of other bits and pieces first. Okay, sorry, I keep saying that. One thing I do want to say about the Odyssey then is the point is it shows its journey around the world. So what's happened, Bob and I have been really getting into the reed boats and how they could have done this journey. So what part 2 is all about is showing whether or not the journey was physically possible. Was it physically possible for ancient mariners to go all around the world? And it seems, not only is it possible, it seems to be something they did a lot. And they certainly had the technology. Reed boats are amazing. So we started off looking at Thor Heyerdahl and his reed boat journeys. Kon-Tiki was balsa wood. And then the Ra expeditions, then his Tigris. And then we found some other guys in more recent times where they put pitch on the boats to make them float higher. And then how we can... And I'll give away the link we're trying to find, which I think would really give great evidence. All right, so it's going to give a little bit of background just quickly. The idea is that with a reed boat, they'll last months, okay? But they won't last 10 years. So what you do with a reed boat generally, or a raft or a boat, which again, there's 2 different categories of boat, okay? So the idea is this is ancient Egyptian, around about 640s BC, sailed all the way around the world, and we're proposing it's in a reed boat or raft, although, it could have been balsa or some other way of doing it. So we're looking, is there any evidence to support this? Now we've got the Gosford glyphs, we've got a few other things which we think we can show, such as some of the stuff found in the mummies' tombs would suggest contact with South America. You've got types of corn they planted, so you can see this kind of thing. But the reed struck us. Because one of the clever things you can do with a reed boat or a raft is as you're travelling around, you can get new reeds and patch it up again. And also what happens if you arrive at a place that doesn't have any reeds? Oh, I'm going to just make sure everything's okay. Got a message. Oh, it's not someone saying there's no sound or something. No, that's all good. So if you might come to a place where there are no reeds. So what are you going to do? How are you going to fix your boat? You might get stuck on some obscure island like Easter Island or the Falklands or Georgia or one of these places. So an idea might be to take the seeds with you. So if you take the reed seeds, a nice little rhyme, reed seeds with you, you could then plant the seeds wherever you end up. you'd have to wait for them to grow, so you'd have to wait a season, say 6-7 months, something like that. It might be shorter. But hey, the ancients had a different kind of view on our world, where we want things in a few seconds. Like the 10-15 minutes getting the show started tonight seemed like an infinity to me. But it was ancient times, waiting a season, or maybe you have no choice. That's the way you do it. So one of the... Oh, great, someone started doing some work outside. I have to close all the doors. So one of the things you can look at, that Bob has spotted, is that there are reeds on Easter Island which seem to have originated in South America. So the obvious question then is, well, how did the reeds get there? They could have been carried by birds or something like that, or winds. But it might be more likely that they were taken by sailors who need to be able to fix their boats or build new ones even. And this would be an interesting way of doing it. Now, there's loads and loads of different species or genus of reeds. I never thought. Who would think? You come onto this channel, want to learn about Wilson and Blackett, and King Arthur. That's where I started, this Welsh history being lost, and King Arthur and all that, and was it real, and this kind of thing. And before you know it, you're doing research on different types of reeds, where they grow. So what the idea we're trying to do here is, if anyone could help me, because the Falklands is one of the key stop-offs on the journey, as described by Wilson and Blackett. So, if what I'm trying to find is details of the... Close that front door, please, on. It's noisy outside. What I'm trying to do is find details of what genus or what type of reeds grow in the Falklands. How mad is this? Because the idea is, reeds could grow anywhere in the world, right? There's hundreds of different types. But if you can show that the same genus of reed is in the Falklands as there is in Egypt, then you have a kind of weird question, well, how did that same species of reed get to those two places which are thousands of miles apart, almost opposite sides of the world? So this suddenly got quite interesting. So that's one thing we're looking at. Plus the journey seemed totally feasible, and looking at the different routes and tides and whether or not you can navigate or whether you just float, which is one of the main differences between a boat and a raft, really. Whether you not have a workable keel. And anyway, so there's more of that to come, all right? So part 2 became a much bigger project than expected, and it seems a shame to just stop there. So that'll be uploaded soon. So rather than make everyone wait even longer for the Odyssey, you can download part 1, which gives you all about the journey and the details, and everything that Wilson and Blackett wrote about it is in there, okay? So you might never even want part 2, but it's one of these little rabbit holes which has become quite fascinating, because this would be more physical evidence to support that, yes, an ancient journey must have taken place. But you can't even say it must have started from Egypt. It must have included Egypt and Falklands if they got the same type of reeds there. So I hope that makes some sort of sense. Okay. Right, here's a fun one. Thank you very much, Richard. Put me onto this one. And I need more updates. So if anyone out there is catching the program, send me a link, send me an email. Say this is on now. This is quite cool, because you can click on this link and then you can go and watch what's going on in the Welsh Senedd, the Welsh Parliament. And at the moment, the one we're interested in is this Historic Environment Wales Bill Ministerial Evidence Session, which I have to say was nowhere near as dull as I thought. I mean, I wouldn't want to sit there glued to my set for an hour or two, but have it on in the background while I was doing some drawing and some work. It was very interesting. I'll just see if I can... God, why is all this noise? It's been quiet as a churchyard, a graveyard all day. And people suddenly decide they want to do some work this time of night now. Oh, hang on. Right, let's have a quick look. Right, so if you copy that link, which should be in the description, because we had to redo everything. So first thing you get there, choose a language. Cymraeg or English, we'll stick with English for now. No, I just chose a language, thank you very much. Why are you doing this to me? Oh, accept, okay. Alright, so what you can do then, you can go to the different... I suppose it must be this one then. So what I did, I watched it live. You can do a search and that, you can find the ones, and then what you'll find then is these people... let's turn the volume down a bit. Having these meetings, the one about the history bill. Oh my goodness, there's our beloved leader, Mr. Drakeford. Let's move on. Oh, I can't avoid him. So yeah, that's what he does all day, apparently. Okay. So you can watch on there, follow the link. You can read, you can follow what's happening with there's not a lot happening so far. It's mostly the, well, I say mostly, it was all the legal chat, going on about definitions of words and terms and all that. So, but hopefully if it gets more lively, let's keep an eye on them. Let's see what's happening, all right? Oop, hang on a second. So thank you for that. Surprisingly, I enjoyed it. It's almost as interesting as studying reed species. The other thing I did, I've been through all the... do you wonder I use your time sometimes, don't you? If you get fascinated by a subject, your teeth into it. I'm looking... Did you realise there's hundreds of different species of plants in the Falklands? I always think of these very barren islands in the middle of nowhere. Oh my goodness, you've got tons of herbs and all sorts and flowers and things, so there you go. Right, how are we doing? I can't see the time anywhere. Right, we're running late. Okay, that's what I'll do. What I'll do with these here, a couple of interesting stories people have sent me from this week. I'll put the links up so you can have a click on those and have a look yourself. And I'll try and do short videos during the week, okay? Just to see what we can do with these. Just bring them to your attention for now. Oh, there's the Senedd live link. Okay, all right. Now, big news here. This is the big one. Hugh Evans, who wrote this fantastic book, The Origin of the Zodiac, which you can see on the left there. And I've got more videos to go up. Hugh's got a channel. It should already be in the description, but I'll add it again because I've got to set everything up again. We've got to reboot the lot. So I'll put the links up again if it's not there already. I think it's in the default settings. It always comes up. But anyway, this is fantastic. All right, this is all about the fascinating thing. I've got to say a little bit more about this in case you're not aware. When you look at the stars, you look up, you just see this blur of white dots, thousands of them, millions of them. And it's just a blur of white dots and that, okay? Now, in ancient times, if you were looking at that and trying to work out if things are moving, if the stars are where they should be, if things are happening, and we'll come on to more of this tonight, then how are you going to remember where everything was? This seems to be the basis for why you need to make zodiacs or star maps. And I think this is Wilson and Blackett, come up with this idea. I endorse it fully. The idea that you need these stories and pictures. So when you look at the night sky, you can see if everything's correct and what's moved. So the most obvious example is the plough or the Big Dipper. We've got your 4 stars that form a square. And sort of handle coming off, and you follow that line, that takes you to that square. Well, that little pattern of stars, by giving it a name, and when you look up, you can see it, and you know that you should be seeing that pattern of stars. And if if one was missing or moved or something, you would notice it. So these stories are very become more and more ways of telling the whole story. So that one's more obvious because it does leap out at you, but you think, oh, hang on a second, why is that Orion? Who decided that bunch of stars there should be some bloke shooting a bow, And why is that the huntsman? Why is that a bear? Why is this? And people are looking for these patterns, and they make a story fit. Or maybe the patterns are made to fit the story. Whichever way around, who knows? But what is remarkable, but whichever way you do it, you're going to select the stars to fit your story. If you tried hard enough, you could probably make pictures out of almost anything. It's like the biggest join the dots game ever, only there's no numbers on the dots and you can choose the pictures. That's what stargazing is a bit like. So the question comes then that Hugh Evans has asked there, how did we get the first zodiac? Where did that come from? Who decided what forms constellations? What are the groups? Why is it in this little section of the sky I can see 50 stars? Why is it we picked those 8 and they make this shape and that's going to be, Pisces or something? It's an interesting question when you think about it, because there's lots of ways you could do it, almost infinite number of ways you could organise the stars. Now what Hugh discovered or observed is that the zodiac, the generally used one, which you can see in almost everything from variations of it all the way through since Ptolemy, they're all based on the same system. And the stars chosen match the mountains of Gwynedd and the rivers and the place names, the whole thing. Now, if you say, we're going to have 7 stars for Pleiades or something like that, if in South Wales, for example, your similar star map system, I can set about building my 7 mounds to reflect that. And then I could check, there's my 7 mounds, they're going to match the stars. The difference with the Gwynedd map in North Wales is that the 7 mountains are there already. So you can't move the mountains, presumably. That might be quite impressive. They're big mountains in North Wales. So the mountains must have come before the zodiac, and the zodiac has been designed based on the arrangement of the rivers, the mountains, and all that kind of stuff. What's happened? Your computer crashed. What's going on tonight? No, the computer's crashed now. Wow, something weird's going on today. Right, so I can't read any comments at the moment, okay? I tell you what, I can do if I take that off screen. Hang on a second. So I do like to see the comments. Bear with me. Oh, it's like scrambling now, isn't it? 'Cause nothing's set up, nothing's right. Right, okay, I'll go back in a second. What about releasing more of the smaller books as downloads first? Yeah, that's the idea, Gary. Yeah, going back to the downloads. Going to release them in sections. Like the one about the Mabinogi will be a book about the Mabinogi with all of it in there with illustrations and pictures and outside stuff brought in. I'll do it in sections first, okay? Right, okay. So I don't spend too long on this then. So just want to see any comments on that, because I know I've got Hugh watching, a few other people. Right, okay, sorry, I lost my track slightly then. So the idea is then, so we have these mountains arranged to match the zodiac. So, I mean, the only way you could do that is the zodiac was based on the arrangement of the mountains. That must be the first zodiac. That's the origin for it. And this ties in with so many other things about the people. I'm just looking at a map of Wales. You've got the old 4 corners of the world type thing. The northwest region is the spiritual area. Same in Ireland, Scotland, England. You have your 4 quarters, and that's a spiritual corner. So that's where you expect to see this kind of stuff done. So what Hugh's done is absolutely, it's groundbreaking. It's phenomenal. He's appeared on Megalithmania. He's appeared on a few other places. And what we're going to do is check if I missed any comments. Nope, I think we're okay. Yeah, the gremlins are on the loose. Cars are broken down as well. Yeah, what's going on with the gremlins, eh? So, now what? He's got another book out now, which follows on from this. Well, I've connected to it. I haven't read the book yet. It's brand new. And what we have here is the origin of time. And Erie is there. Well, I don't know how it fits in with the constellations, but it's part of the Snowdonia mountain range. It was quite a good discussion I had with about that a long time ago. So this is what we're looking at with the maps and everything, all right? Oh, what have I clicked? Right, now the good news is August the 27th, the tickets will be on sale by next week's show, hopefully. That's the idea. We've got the venue looking at, and there's going to be a chance to see Hugh live and meet him, ask questions, buy his book, all that kind of thing, and the new book. And I was chatting with him today, and he's telling me that there's going to be a lot of stuff there that's never been seen anywhere before. We won't be putting it on YouTube beforehand. It won't be on for months afterwards. So you'll need to come down to the venue, which would be somewhere near the M4. It'll be on South Wales, probably Morganstown. I'm looking at other possibilities. Because I'm thinking, the other thing, which is mind-blowing for me, Hugh has seen the world's first telescope, which is like the modern, refractive lens type thing or something like that. This is an area designed to make specific observations, and it's about 5 miles long. I'm fascinated to see that. So get that in your diary, all right? August 27th. Because what I'd like to do as well, I'm thinking try and make a day of it. We've only got the venue for the evening, unless we go for a different venue, so the details are a little bit up in the air. But Morganstown, for example, is very close to the Garth. And I think what would be an interesting presentation from my side of things to compare with it will be to do one on Orion. And I can see the stars of Orion mapped out around the Garth. So you've got the 3 mounds on the Garth, the belt of Orion. You've got the feet, you've got the elbow. You've got Morganstown, there's a mound there, which is really close to the town hall, I think they're using, or the village hall. So you go and have a look at that. Len, if you're out there, Len Crowther, brilliant, taking up to see a new mound, which I knew nothing about, which is within a mile and a half of my house, within 2 miles anyway. And it's there, and I didn't know anything about it, and it's fantastic. So I videoed that, but I think I might save that up my sleeve until August 27th. And in the day, we can meet earlier and we can have a little tour. We could go around the different points of Orion. and see how that works. All right, so make sure you get that date in your diary. Hopefully I'll have tickets and everything up by next week. I'll do some little chats with you and that kind of thing as well. All right. Hey, there's my presentation gone. Slight panic. Right. Don't panic, Ross. Don't panic. I've rebooted and the presentation's gone. It'll be fine. Just stay calm. Tell Mummy I need a cup of tea quickly. I need tea. There's panic stations. I need tea. It's okay. It's okay. I've got the download I sent through. We'll use that. I haven't got the pretty pictures. I lost all my pretty pictures. So we're going to be a little bit without pretty pictures tonight. Come on, Ross. You can do this. Come on. That was a nightmare to reboot everything. I had everything set up. Just right. Pop. Sing us a song, huh? Now it's trying to make me purchase some software I don't want now. Go away. No, I'm not using that. I don't even want to use it. I don't even want to use it. No, I just want to open. Alright, sorry folks. Right, here we go. That one. Right, so we're going to look at now. It's okay, so I have to excuse the lack of any pretty graphics there. As you know, it's been a bit of a disaster on the technical front. Now, like I said, the first question that came up from Richard on the comments there was why Bronwen rather than Branwen? Everywhere else is Branwen. I know Richard knows this stuff better than I do, and I'm pretty sure he's right. So I've checked in this copy of the Mabinogi. I've Mabinogi on, as he put it. I've got two more copies down there, a really old one and one from the 60s, and this one's quite modern. And I'm pretty sure all say Branwen rather than Bronwen. What we're going to do is see why. One of the things, funny enough, is what this will hopefully make apparent, is why Bronwen seems to work. I don't know how Branwen would work. Right, how can I go full screen on this? Full screen. I'm going to go full screen in a minute if something doesn't go right. Oh! I'm going to go full screen. Alright, there we go. So we can see the words in front of you anyway, so it'll help. As I said, the download's available there. Right, so what we're going to do is go through the story. See, this says, it does say Branwen there. That should be Bronwen. I can't. Alright, okay. That's interesting. It should be Bronwen. Right, so look at the main characters here. What we're going to look at all around the world. Let's go back. Get the introduction first. I got that lined up. Right. One of the things about catastrophism, and if you look at Collins Beaumont or Velikovsky, all these various writers, including Wilson and Blackett, is that there seems to have been some catastrophic events that have taken place in recorded history period. So when you look at the Battle of Troy, for example, as in Homer's Iliad or the film and that kind of thing, with Hercules and this and the battles, while the people are fighting it out on the ground, you've got this heavenly battle going on. In that case, you've got Mars the Destroyer coming in, and you've got Venus, and they're taking sides, and this cosmic battle is going on. Well, you will find these sort of stories running in all over the world, right? All the mythos, or I don't like the word myth, because myth you tend to think it's just complete nonsense, it's just completely made up. So it's more about it's like legends, if you like, or a different style of writing history. And Velikovsky talks about this. So all over the world, one of the great stories in the Bible, it's in the Babylonian stuff, it's in the South American, the Japanese, it's in Chinese. You have this great flood. So the theory is that rather than having a stable solar system where the planets have just gone round and round and round and round for infinity or for millions and millions of years or billions of years, the idea is that whatever setup we have above us has not been there that long and has not been stable. This is the key. So if you look at ancient records, they talk about different types of stars. They have the stationary stars, which they call a firmament, and then they have the moving stars, which we now call planets. So the concept is that we have nearer to us the planets whizzing around, and then the modern approach is that we've got stars so far away, so many billions of miles, they don't appear to move. Whichever way you want to get your head around that, I mean, all of them are just mind-blowing, whether or not it's billions and billions of miles, or it's a firmament, or whatever it is, right? It's not really the important issue. The issue is that the ancients were in a situation where they need to explain this. So the theory is that some of these planets, some of which have disappeared, or not disappeared, but are no longer present, were not on stable orbits. They were flying around. And some would come very close to the Earth. And when they did this, almost like a collision or becoming very close, and then the attraction between the two planets, and this was devastating. This is why you call Mars is the destroyer, because when Mars comes in on its orbit, it comes round, it whizzes very close to the Earth, and there's earthquakes, and there's floods, and there's great disasters. The whole Earth can get rocked when it's on its axis or its plane. It gets rocked around, so you get the water swishing around, you get floods, disasters, terrible times, terrible times. Mass extinction events is what we're talking about. So once you start thinking of the solar system and the universe in those ways, where there's these massive comets coming towards you, there's planets, death is not far away, if you like. It's worth paying close attention, because you need to take precautions. You need to be aware of these things happening, and also you need to put them into the memory. And Velikovsky talks about our collective amnesia, that these events were so traumatic, so many millions and millions of people died, and creatures died, and every civilization destroyed, that we blocked it out of our mind. But it is all there in the myths, and the similarities between them all makes it a very powerful argument for this being a great worldwide catastrophe that we should pay more attention to now. Just, okay, I know Brad's got a different idea on this one. Okay, so this is what we're talking about here. Okay, so the question which came up a couple of weeks ago is: do the British myths or legends or ancient history, do they refer to this great flood as well? And this is where we come on to with the Mabinogi. And again, the story's being dressed up in familiar names and familiar people, but it's actually the story of an ancient flood. This is what we're talking about, okay? So, if we look at, let's go and look at some of the names. Quite interesting. If you look at the names in the Mabinogi, and I haven't checked all of these yet, but I'm pretty certain they're the same ones. I mean, I have read all these stories at different points. I know the names are the same names, all right? But if you see a mistake or something, please let me know. The other good thing about doing these books as small downloads just a couple of pounds ago and everything is that they can be refined and improved, and then when we're really happy with it, then we'll get the book printed, okay? Right, so here we go. We're talking about the flood here, all right? Oh, by the way, this goes on to much more as well. We're going to go on to Bran's head being cut off and put in London, and Ireland, how Ireland gets its name, what the name Ireland means. I should mention this beginning, shouldn't I? There's loads more cool stuff, okay? All right, so we've got clear as a shore or brink. I'll just go through these definitions. I put in here nice, big and bold. Marini is... Now, this is slightly different. These definitions are ones I've looked up, all right? In the old dictionaries. I can't always find... Wilson and Blackett, it takes ages to check, so they don't give much references. It all does check out eventually. It takes a long time. So, for example, here, Marini, I think Wilson and Blackett put in the text here, it means the shore. Doesn't really explain it. But when you look it up in the old dictionary, it's even more interesting. Marini means earth deposited by water. So that was quite a surprise when I found that. Bran, most people know, is the raven. This is an interesting word here. Harddlech. Now, there's a place in North Wales called Harlech. So the natural assumption is, the lazy assumption, if you like, is that Harlech is Harddlech, just spelt differently or something. But Alan Wilson shows this is part of the hiding of the story, if you like. It's a sort of distraction, deliberately done, because you have to remember that Welsh history has been suppressed for hundreds and hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, even being caught with a pen and paper in Wales was enough to get you into serious trouble. The records have been stolen over the years. We've got some more stuff coming on that as well. There's a story, I'm going to do a video with Bob Morgan, where you can see, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago now, in the 1850s, loads of Welsh documents were taken, and people were still fighting to get them back in the 1960s. We're talking 50 years ago or 60 years ago, and this seems to have been forgotten, this campaign, to get that information back, because it's stashed away somewhere in the London archives. No one's chasing it anymore. I think people have just forgotten. So we're going to start reminding people. All right, let's just a quick look at some of the comments. Let's push on a second. Where are the comments going? Oh yeah, please don't have an argument again, Taliesin, about the flat Earth, because I will have to block you. As simple as that, because I know you've Hugh's upset. You've been trolling his channel as well. We're not discussing the shape of the Earth, all right? I can't put any clearer than that. I've tried to be as generous as I can, whichever model you prefer. We're discussing a flood, all right? And if you want to have that conversation, I have to go somewhere else, okay? Sorry to be so firm on it, but it's got to a ridiculous stage where the chats are getting ruined. Arnie, if one more comment from Taliesin about flat Earth, can you just block him, please? Right, okay, so let's crack on with this. Not that I'm against the idea, but this isn't the place to discuss it, all right? Right, now, so Harlech is not Harlech at all, it's just a way of hiding it. Harlech is the towering stone. So we've got Ardeen, Sublime, Manawyddan. You'll see all these things will come up in the story, that's why they're important. Manawd and Dan. Now, what struck me as interesting here, and I'm going to divert slightly away from Wilson and Black in a minute and look more towards Lawrence, our friendly druid up in North Wales, who's absolutely fantastic. Now, he lives in a place called Manawyddan, or it's slightly different, but it's a very similar name to that. But all his story, he tells a story as well about the flood. If you go to the playlist about my chats with Lawrence the Druid, he has an account of the flood as well. Oh, it's a slightly different one, because the flood we're talking about there is the one with the Lost Cantrev, it's called. So if you look on the west coast of Britain, on the west coast of Wales, there's an area called the Lost Cantrev, which is a fascinating area, because at certain low tides, at certain times of the year, you can see sort of petrified remains of whatever was going on there, whether it was a village or some sort of life and trees and things. And officially, that's about 8,000 years old. Unofficially, the Welsh history records talk about it happening in the 6th century, and they talk about characters like Selwyn, who's drunk, and he forgot to maintain the dike, and the water came in on the high tide. And it's a living memory event. But it could also refer to the Great Flood event. But where it's interesting, because I think Lawrence would be interested in this. I know he doesn't even got a computer, so I have to print it out and send it to him and have a chat with him on the phone about it, so I'm very interested in his comments. Okay, so we're setting up the characters here, who they all are, right? So you can check who they all are, the jobs, positions. Oop. So these words are important, these definitions, because this is how the stories are hidden. Quite often, you'll see, particularly in Welsh, the same word will have more than one meaning. And the idea is very much that you have the sort of, what's the word? Not banal, that sounds rude. But the regular meaning, like as one comes up later in this story called bowed. Bowed means flower, all right? So if I talk about bowed, as far as you're concerned, is flower, right? But bowth can also mean like a sort of a hidden force, if you like, or a sudden strike or something like that. It's a subtly different word, and you can hide meanings, and that comes into the story a little bit later. So it's all a play on names, as Wilson and Blackett say here, okay? Do my pictures now. So you got Penardim, right. The setting of all the characters, not to stay too long on this. Right, let's get into the story here. Start into the story. Right, so while Bran, that's the Raven, yeah, he's the king, he's become very important. We're sitting at Harlech, the towering stone. They saw 13 ships coming from the south of Iwerddon. Iwerddon is the word for island. This Cymraeg, or Welsh word for island, okay? So we've got Yw is that extreme. Erdd is the impulse forward for the sake of. And on means what is superior, what's in continuity. So we got Iwerddon. I should have written that in full. Oh, I did write it in full. I thought I did, yes. So that extreme impulse forward in continuity. This is what's become island in Welsh, Iwerddon. And remarkably, that ties in with these stories, okay? Because if you know this story, you'll see that we have Branwen or Bronwen. She has to go away to Ireland, where she's held as a captive. we'll go through the story as we go through it, okay? In many ways, it'd be easier to tell the story first. Okay, so generally, Iwerddon has become Erin, which is the short name for Ireland, as used these days. But here we have 13 ships, which Wilson and Blackett say would represent the 13 lunar months of the year, which are coming forward for the sake of continuity. Which is most like, what's this annoying thing doing there? Oh, it's just not my day with technology. Alright, so the moon controls the ocean tides as it progresses through its lunar months. Right, okay. Right, so what's happening is, when people tell a story, it's just like a fairy tale. What we have is King Bran is sitting there in his tower, or in Harlech. He looks out to sea. 13 ships are coming over from Ireland, all right? So he immediately sends down his men and say, what are these beautiful, fast, well-made ships with brocade? So why is there brocade there? Well, that's nobody's code words, which is to do with revolving. So when you see things, you can see them flashing on and off, or revolving, rotating. Brocade is like the code word for you see that. So every time you see the word brocade, it means revolving, okay? The foremost ship was carrying a raised shield with its point downward as a sign of peace. Right, so some of the strangers came ashore and greeted Bran, who asked who their leader was. Bran asked them who their leader was. And they told him he was Mathloluch, the king of Iwerddon. All right, this is where we get confused, because we get drawn into automatically thinking it's Ireland. All right, it's not as simple as that. So Mathloluch is Matli, which means to blast, to grind or to soften. And Luch means dust or powder. So Mathloluch turns out to be the grinding, pounding waves. In short, he's the flood. So this Mathloluch, who's the key character, he's some sort of king of Ireland, and we'll see in a minute, Iwerddon isn't just Ireland. This is like the great abyss. So what's happening, and this is coming through the sea, the 13 months, and everything's about to get messed up. The way the stars appear in the sky, when the days are, the floods are coming, it's going to be horrendous. Now, this is one of the difficulties, I think, and it's something I like to chat with when you and I get together, it's something I like to talk about, is how do we really date anything based on the stars? Because one of the assumptions you always make, such as, with some of the theories about the Sphinx, for example, that's one of my favourites. One of the theories about the Sphinx is it must be 12,000 years old, or 8,000, wherever it is. And the logic is that the Sphinx itself is a particular star sign. You know, the heads, you could say the body's a lion. Therefore, it should line up with Leo, with Regulus. And if we apply our Newtonian model, this goes click, 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 we rewind it, and the point at which that pointed to the Regulus star, the Leo, was about 12,000 years ago. Therefore, de facto, that was built 12,000 years ago. Or it was built to align to where the stars were 12,000 years ago. That's another thing you have to bear in mind. You know, I could build one lined up on Leo 12,000 years ago. Doesn't mean it is 12,000 years old, but we're going to assume it was built to point in the right direction when it was built, okay? The problem comes, what if that's not been a regular motion all those years? What if these planets weren't whizzing around? What if the stars weren't in the right place? What if our plane or our globe or whatever, right, has been jolted by external disturbances, and the sky will appear differently? This is why these flood stories are so important, because they have to store the knowledge of what damage is done. Not just the physical damage, not just the people dying, but what it does to the length of a day, the length of a year, the length of a month, where the stars appear, the seasons can be out of whack. You know, your summer could be in the winter, your winter in the summer. It's a disaster. So when you have your different star signs, like for example, Orion, it's one of the ones I was chatting with Hugh earlier about, and the one I'm thinking I'll do on the live evenings will be right in the middle of the Orion mapped out on the star map on South Wales, is for a certain time Orion is like the harbinger. The Orion is so important because in these stories, which we'll do another week, not this week, Orion is the character that comes up and kills the winter effectively. So you have the god of winter, and then along comes Orion, or the warrior, and you've got different it's the same character. It runs through loads and loads of cultures, the Greeks, the Romans, all of them. Effectively destroys winter, and then we start getting the rebirth towards summer and everything. So the arrival of Orion is a very important event. But the problem is, you could say, if they put this up, 5,000 years ago, Orion wouldn't be in that part of the sky, he'd be somewhere else. So it gets really difficult, really complicated. But this is the kind of imagery that we're trying to get across here, okay? So this is where it comes in, Bronwen, meaning white breast, which Wilson Black interpret that as being the waves. So you've got the waves coming out. So Mathloluch is the flood, and his daughter is the waves. All right? Oh, sorry, not his daughter, soon-to-be wife. Right, so he's seeking alliance with Bran. Bran is the thunder, the rain god. So that ties in with Yahweh and Ea. Going all the way back there. Again, you can see the Babylonian connections, right? This is the god we're talking about. So Mathloluch also wishes to ask Bran to give him Bronwen, daughter of Llŷr, as his bride. So we've got to look up at who is Llŷr. Let's have a look. Hang on, we defined Llŷr up here somewhere. We defined Llŷr, didn't we? Yes, there it is. So Llŷr is the shore or a brink. So the waves want to come onto the shore. Okay, this is what the Mabinogi is telling us. Can you just check that a second? It's okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so what's going to happen? He wants the waves to come onto the shore, and then they're going to grind away and blast away at the shore, okay? This is what the Mabinogi message is telling us. Okay, so the seashores make sense. The foaming white waves break on the seashore, and if the pounding, grinding waves are allied with great storms, when they come ashore and cause floods. The suggestion is that by allying Bran's kingdom of the island of the mighty, which is Britain, or in this case the heavens, with Mathloluch's kingdom of the extremity, both kingdoms will be stronger. So a council of the leading men of the island of the mighty is called, and they agree to give Bronwen, the white breast, or the breaking, foaming waves, to Mathloluch, the flood. So Bran and his party set off from Hadlech, which, as I say, is a blind for Harlech, to confuse the religious fanatics and foreign priests, and they head for Aberfraw, which is the fine, brisk estuary. Mathloluch and his 13 ships sail along the coast. Bronwen is said to be one of the 3 great queens of the island, and the most beautiful girl in the world. So these triads again come in. So this is where you get the cross-referencing and the interconnecting, where you have, this is where it gets confusing. You have physical characters by these names with physical lives in history, and they are used as an allegory for the space story, if you like, or the sky story, okay? Same with Arthur, all right? Yes, there's the bear. Arthur means bear, and there's the bear star. And loads of these stories you see revolve around Arthur's court, and Arthur represents depending on your viewpoint, the sun or the earth that's in the middle, and the court is all going well, and these wandering planets, they're represented by knights, and when 2 planets crash into each other, these are the knights jousting. And when you have the smaller lights being mopped up, so this is how we get Jupiter coming in, who's Peridea, and then we got Saturn battling to take over, all this kind of stuff. It's amazing. The original Star Wars is absolutely fantastic. And it's all in the Mabinogi. It's just remarkable. It's just one of many stories. That's been my main read lately, because once you can understand what the Mabinogi is about, they move from being, really weird children's stories that don't make sense. Suddenly, you can see, there's a much deeper message, and you need to think about it. So, 13 ships may mean the 13 lunar months of the year in the association of the gravitational pull of the moon on the Earth's ocean tides. All right, so they feasted. I'm just going to jump forward a bit now. So what they do is arranging the quarters. They're going to have this wedding and everything, okay? Now, the brother comes into it. This is where the brothers come in. This is where the trouble starts. Oh, excuse me. One of the brothers takes umbrage that this whole wedding's been arranged, his sister's being married, and no one told him. So in the Mabinogi children's story, this is represented, and he gets to the horses of the visitors, the horses are going to be gifts. He chops the tails off, he cuts their eyebrows off, and generally mutilates the horses and makes them useless for anything. This is his punishment. Now, why is he doing that? Isn't it a weird thing to do? When you read the Mabinogi, you think, well, that's a horrible thing to do, cut off the tails of horses and things. So, but the horses are the waves, Matholwch. This is a much bigger thing to go on than physical horses. This is the gods, if you like, or the elements. So he's cut their ears, lips to the bone, their tails, really messed up the horses, okay? So this is Efnisien, we'll come on to in a second what that means. He's destroying the ways of Matholwch. The flood angered. So Matholwch's men are really confused now. They're like, hang on a second, we've turned up. On the one hand, you're giving the daughter's hand in marriage, everything's cool, you're giving us all these gifts, everything's fantastic. And then, wow, you're really insulting us as badly as you can. So they're going to sail off. They're like, we've had enough, we're off. So Bran, the king, don't forget, he's like, hey, whoa, where are they going? Where'd all the ships going? What's happening? Why have they left? They haven't said goodbye, or left without permission. So, right, this is where we come into then this guy, Uddhv, who's St. Anthony's fire, and then you've got the not calm or ruffled. So we go into this a little bit more in a second, okay? So you've got these people here, and the envoys find him, Matholwch, who's now leaving on his ships. He's off. And they said, we give you the excellent bride in Bronwen, but he was insulted when his horses, the waves, were maimed by Efnisien. All right? Now, where do we define Efnisien? Hang on. Oh, he's further down. Sorry, we'll come on to his... You'll see who Efnisien is. But again, it's Welsh words. It's really the old Welsh dictionaries, because you can break the words down. There you are. And now the word is not calm, hefyd is tranquility. You can work all these things down and you can see what the story means. There's a funny one in one of the other Mabinogi stories I was reading the other night, and it's about Angharad. And I know a couple of Angharads, and Angharad actually means without love or without affection. And that's an interesting story. I might do a short video on all those called Angharad. Do you know what your name really means? Because I think one of the problems is that, the amusing side effects, is people enjoy the Mabinogi stories, even though they're a bit weird and they can't really understand them. They do make interesting stories and they're very popular. And lots of the names from the Mabinogi are used, particularly the girls' names I've noticed. There's lots of, Bronwens, not so much these days, there used to be. Angharads, Rhiannons, Rhianneds, a lot of the Mabinogi names, beautiful names. But be a little bit careful, because you might not realise the full implications of your name, all right? It's be the same with some of the male names as well, by the way. Owain's a funny one, there's a few of them. Right, so the envoy explains that Bran's upset as well. All right, it wasn't me today, I didn't know it was being done, all right? So then we come on to Unig, which is the Atlas, the one-shouldered, the one. Right, so Bran's alarmed that Matholwch still intends to leave. And so he sends Manawydan and Hefyd along with Unig, who's Atlas, this is the tie-in with the ancient myths, who holds the earth in place, to negotiate with Matholwch, and finally the flood is persuaded to return. So the flood's going to come back now. I don't know why you'd want the flood back, but there we go. So as Enig, looked up the word Enig, because like I said, solitary, an only child is like a variation of that, Eniger or something. So I'm not a Welsh speaker, I had to look all these words up. But anyway, as Enig Atlas is the entity upon whose shoulder the earth rested, his inclusion indicates a shifting of the earth on its poles. Right, now, whichever model of the world you look at, in the old days, in the modern global view, we have a pole. We have the North Pole and the South Pole, and this runs through the centre, okay? And this very ancient concept we have at the tree in the middle. Oh, by the way, Wilson and Black have found some notes they've written about Teutonic mythology, Odin and all that, which I didn't even know they went there, but I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. So all around the world, you see ancient symbols with things wrapped around, and it's all to do with the twisting all around the centre, okay? So this is where this part of the story comes in. There's something's happening with, when you say a pole, it's I know people talk about magnetic poles, but actually this is a pole, like a big stick, running through the middle. Everything's going around, right? Planets, stars, Earth. So something's happened to that. So if this tilts or goes off, everything is in trouble, all right? Or even if it goes upside down. I don't even know how that would be possible, but there we go. So this is the real worry. This is like end of the world kind of worry. We're all going to drown. We're all going to die. That's why these stories are so important. This is why the ancients are so obsessed with astronomy. Think of the effort they put into little dots and making these enormous things. The sort of things that Hughes discovered, these ancient telescopes, and then the fact that you've got massive star mounds all across countries, and the pyramids seem to line up with Orion's belt. It was life or death. It wasn't just a curiosity for them. Right, so okay, so they do a deal, all right? So Bran says, very sorry, and he's going to give him a load of silver, you know, the thickness of his finger and the size of his face and all sorts of lovely presents. And he's like, okay, all right. He calms him down, okay? So you come on to this a bit and... sorry, so this time... Right, so but when Bran goes up to him, Matholwch he's listless, uninspired, because the waves have been broken, the flood's been dispersed, nothing much is going to happen. But Bran is the storm, don't forget. Bran is like Yahweh. So the water power is worried and promises to give Matholwch extra compensation and the replacement horses. So he gives them all these presents and all this kind of stuff, and everyone's happy. Okay, right. And there's a place called Tal Ebilon, Payment of Cults. This is where it gets a bit weird. When you got like this ancient mythology and everything, and you can still visit the places, you know. This is where it gets pretty cool, like Arbeth and places like that. Arbeth and Arbeth. Right, so you got the magic cauldron. Now this is a great one. This makes a lot of sense. We'll come on to the cauldron in a second, but the magic cauldron has the property. Anyway, if a warrior dies in battle, you put him in the cauldron, and he comes back the next day, but he would be dumb, wouldn't be able to speak. Okay. Oops. Right, so Matholwch questions Bran as to where he got the cauldron. And he said he got it from the men from your own country, which, don't forget, in Welsh, in this case, means the extremities. So you're talking out into deep space, or the far extension of wherever we are, okay? So we can go through all the details of that. I can't go through everything right now. Right, what we want to do here. So we then go over to Ireland, all right? This is the misconception, this island. It's actually the other world. Ireland is like a metaphor for that because it's across the sea. Now, people following this idea of a metaphor, or is that the right word even, an allegory, whereby we've got this physical island across the sea, which is being used to represent the journey into the deep vastness they talk about in the Mabinogi, or the deep vastness. In a modern world, we call it outer space, whatever that means. All right. Right. So in a second, missed a bit there. Yeah. So the idea is here is a description of the fluid metal mercury, and the loose, long, or trailing is both a description of the properties of mercury, the metal, and the arrival of a giant loose planet or comet with a tail into our solar system. That's where it appears. You're looking up and you see this coming along there like a sword or something in the sky. Right, okay, so I want to dwell too much on that bit a second. This is more stuff you can read. It's not key for our story at the moment. Right, here we want to go. Because the problem is the story jumps over to Ireland a bit now. The Mabinogi stories do jump around quite a lot. You have sort of parallel narratives going on, which makes them fascinating and also quite difficult to narrate in a short form. Because if you've got three stories going on simultaneously, do I keep jumping back and forth between them? I want to try and finish one first. But the monster is important because we have this monster here. And the reason I want to mention it, there's this giant monster, this rampaging around in Ireland. Read the full story, it's not all in here. There's incredible martial powers. There's the mother and the monster. And they grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's no way of containing them. Now this has, again, clear parallels with Beowulf and the story of Grendel and the monster. Again, you find a lot of these Teutonic stories share roots or have come from the British stories or the Babylonian stories via their own route, or their rewritings of the British stories into Anglo-Saxon names and terms. Same with Odin, all these. They all share the same root stories. Okay? Right, so this is how we got the cauldron. I'm going to go how we got the cauldron. Let's go into it quickly. How are we doing for time? I'm a bit late. I was hunting in the weather one day at the top of a mound which overlooks the lake of the cauldron, and then I saw a huge man with yellow-red hair emerging from the lake with a cauldron on his back. He was a great monstrous... This is going to really annoy me. I don't know how to get rid of these things. I suppose I've got the editing capabilities. I've got the Adobe Pro, that's what it is, not just the reader. Right, okay. His wife followed, and if he was huge, she was twice as big. So I bring any bells now with Grendel and the two monsters, the monster and the mother monster being even bigger in the Beowulf stories. So the huge man told Matholwch that in 1 month the woman would give birth to a boy and he would be a fully armed monster. A definition of time. Yeah, the time book's coming next. Right, okay. Right, okay, so we go back to Ireland. All right, so what we're going to do here. The people of Ireland, or Iwerddon, they complain about the insult that's been called to them. This is the key person here now, is Gwern, all right? Because Gwern means swamp. So we've got the great deep, outer space. So the impression is that Mercury and Venus and the huge man and his wife arrived in inner areas of the solar system after causing chaos in the outer regions. So there's two more of these planets whizzing around the outside, and they're now causing, they're on some sort of orbit, which is going to cause near misses and potentially crash, and is causing problems. This also, curiously, is there seems to be the story from Wilson and Blackett's perspective, the story in the Bible whereby you have the fallen angel. And again, this is one of the planets, and it seems to be Saturn or Jupiter, comes out of its orbit, actually saves the world from potentially being hit by some sort of comets or asteroids, whatever come in here. This comes in and protects. The problem is it creates all these earthquakes and floods and all these kind of things, which is why we get two versions of the description of it. What Wilson and Blackett show is that the Jewish nation sees that as their salvation, because they are the 10 plagues or pestilences on Egypt that broke the will of the Pharaoh and caused them to be released. So as far as they're concerned, this is brilliant. This is the equivalent of Matholwch, who comes in and saved their people. Whereas a few of the Egyptians, you're not quite so keen on it, are you? If you think about it, if you've got a civilization that's been absolutely wrecked by this planet coming down and coming too close, you can see, I think it's Saturn, because you've got Saturn and Satan is sort of linked. So then you've got this situation where it's the worst nightmare for you. So there's two sides to the same story, isn't it? Like you got the great invader, and the people being invaded will have some very different names. Right, so what we got here then, right, so Matholwch and Bronwen, so they get married anyway. Get back to original story. They get married anyway, they've made up the differences, and they go over to live in Iwerddon, okay? Great rejoicing, everyone's happy to see them, the ability are out. Now this is the curious bit. Bronwen, if you look in your Mabinogi, Bronwen gave birth to a son named Gwern. And Gwern means swamp. Once you read this, you think, why does no one else think about what Wilson and Blackett thinks of? That's like genius, isn't it? Seeing the obvious things everyone else misses. So, if you had a great storm, the water's receding, you're left with a swamp. So as it says here, it's logical, after the withdrawal of a flood, Matholwch and the breaking foaming waves Bronwen, a swamp would be produced. Oops, sorry. But then they complain, they're not very happy, the people of Iwerddon, they're still feeling offended. So Matholwch turned against Bronwen, and if you look in the story, what he does, he locks her in the kitchen. She's humiliated. He won't kill her or anything like that. He locks her in the kitchen, like it says here, like a Cinderella figure. Every day the butcher gives her a whack. She's treated terribly. And she does this wonderful thing where she teaches a bird how to carry the message. And she ties a little message onto the foot of the bird. And she's able to tell the bird how to get back to Bran, so he can send his knights to come and rescue her from this terrible situation where she's being beaten up every day, made to work as a lowest servant, and having a terrible time. And he's got to come across and rescue her. So it's a wonderful romantic story, just read as a fairy tale story. It's wonderful. Except you're missing the whole point of the story, is the only problem. I've got to get rid of that blasted thing there. Right, so anyway, the ships arrive from Wales. Now, interestingly, she gets hit by what's called the butcher, because you got llad is the word used. But lladar also means to denounce, and llad sun can mean sound resisting. So it puts a different tone in it. Again, it's just multiple meanings of the same Welsh words, yeah? So she taught this starling I just told you about, a few words, and off he went, and he goes to save her. I'm trying to jump ahead a bit now, because we're going to be, there's a lot of names listed here, all right? So you can just get the download, you can read them all for yourself, okay? Right, the key is, the message gets back to Bran, right? Like a true storm god, he wades across the sea. And I get this statement down, there's only two rivers, the Llŷ and the Archen, which again have meanings, we'll see in a second. But they the general thing is that they do not indicate the Shannon and the Liffey. Llŷ looks like Liffey, but that's not the reason, okay? And Bran also carries musicians on his back, which could represent constellation of Lyra, the harp. So again, it's all about moving through the star signs. So if you look at the meanings here, so Llŷ is a flux, a flood, a stream, and arch is a request. And Llŷ, all it's in motion. So it's all to do with this request to come and save her, okay? Right, so the swineherds, again, this has probably got some significance. And they told me the wonder they had seen. And what they've seen is it looks like a forest, because the ships are so big. And Bran is so enormous. He's walking across the water. There's this huge moving forest coming towards them. What on earth are they going to do about it? So what they decide to do is a retreat across, this gets interesting, this bit. They retreat across the river, Llŷ, and burn the bridge. So the lodestones in the riverbed will prevent the passage of ships, and Bran will be unable to reach Matholwch, because Bran wants to come in and, give him some. This they do, but Bran solves the problem very simply by stating, let him who would be a leader be a bridge. And this comes up a couple of times in Welsh stories. So he lay down across the river, and everyone crossed on his back. All right. Now this bit's fascinating. I mentioned that they're going to give the origins of the word for Dublin as well. Right, here it is. I almost missed it. Dublin used to actually be called the town of the Hurdle Ford. So there you go. If you look at the history of Dublin, you'll see the Hurdle Ford, and that ties in with the Welsh Mabinogi stories. Which I would think is a little bit more credence to that being the Liffey, but there you go. It's got two meanings, isn't it? So there we go. So Matholwch the Flood was resigning his kingdom in favour of his son Gwern, who's the swamp. And this hopefully does make good to the injury done to Bronwyn. Because he's worried now. Bran is coming saying, look at the way you treated the daughter of Llŷ. Look at the way you treated Bronwyn. It's outrageous. You've been beating her up. You treat her as a servant. You've been awful to her. He's like, whoa. Okay, well, I'll stand down as king. We'll hand over to the son Gwen, which effectively, is her son as well. But no, Bran says, no, you need to do more, you've got to do better. Go back, So he decides the only solution is to build one great house in which Bran could fit with all the men of the island of the mighty in one half, and all the men of Iwerddon in the other half. This is a weird one, isn't it? The kingship is then be at Bran's disposal, and Matholwch and his men will become Bran's followers. The idea of containing floods, keeps jumping around, and great storms is logical. So this could be building a massive storm wall to keep him behind. So if the waves break on the seashores, then the land does not suffer flooding. So this is like building sea walls and that kind of thing. So the piece is made, and they set this trap. Another great use of English. Remember I mentioned, or Welsh, language. Remember earlier I mentioned the flower and that? Right, this is where it comes in. So they set a trap for Bran the Crow and his followers. They fit a peg to each of the 100 pillars of the house, and they hang a leather bag on each peg. Into each leather bag they place a concealed armed man. So they're going to ambush them. They're in these bags hanging from the roof when everyone's relaxing, sleeping, whatever. Presumably they're going to jump out the bags, cut themselves out, and then, stab everyone to death or something. The plan misfires when Efnisien is the first, now he's foresight, is the first to enter the house ahead of Bran and his men. With his ferocious, merciless stare, he notices the bags and demands to know what's inside. So Gyswellian tells him, flour, friend, right? Flour. So the Welsh word for flour is blawd, still is to this day. And so Efnisien fumbles with each bag until he finds the warrior's head. He crushes the skull. And nothing much the other people can say, because they've just told him it's flour, so he wants to squeeze the flour. What's wrong with that, isn't it? And in the case of the last man, he notices that the man wears armour. Finally sang an England about the flour and the warriors. Okay, so we've got blawd, is meal or flour. Now, Alan Wilson says blawdd also means fear. I couldn't find that in the dictionaries. So I have changed this slightly. So if you can find blawdd means fear, please let me know where you found it and how it works. What I did find, which I think works even better to support Wilson and Blackett's argument, is blawdd means an activity or a tumult. So you can have a tumult, a group of soldiers or something. They're active, nimble, swift and ready. And they're in the bags just ready to jump out, which I think, tells the story just as well. I'm not sure how fear fits in. So your blawdd means fear, commotion, terrible danger. And the England's a play on words. So what he's saying is there, in these bags, the kind of fear, commotion, terrible danger. I was going through dictionaries myself today. I find in the bags is activity and tumults. They're swift and they're ready to attack an ambush. So I've just added that in as a little comment from me, okay? Right, so Ben and his host enter the camp. Oop, stop doing that, Ross. And so they've got this swamp now, okay? And Ireland's obviously famous for swamps. And the other thing at the swamps then is the peat. Because the next thing that happens is they throw the swamp into the fire and burn it. So Gwern Swamp is a peat bog. All right, so everything ties in wonderfully with the physical and with the message. I seem to have lost my producer tonight. So hang on, I need to just make sure I'm not missing anything on the comments. Right, okie dokie. Oh dear, hope it's going well. Sorry, I didn't mean to be quite so harsh as that, but it seems to have dragged on for a few weeks. Alright, so back to Mor the Wee, which is similar to the place where Lawrence the Druid lives, okay? Which got the sea estuary up there. And the curious thing is he tells a very similar story where when the flood comes, the water went all the way up the river, which is now a sort of dry riverbed effectively. The water went right up and you can see, I think I've got on the videos, as you go along the valley, you can see where the water level is much, much higher. And the water's gradually receded back into the sea. Which is quite important because some of the stories about lakes and estuaries and entrances to rivers are in areas which are now dry and don't have rivers. So we have to allow for this. Because what we have here at Tillio, which is one of the churches up there, means to make a hole. So when a river creates an estuary by breaking a gap in the shoreline and excess water is drained from the land and runs down into the sea. If water is drained from swamps into rivers and away to the sea, then the swamp dries out and good land may be created. Morddwyd, with a D, does mean thigh. So normally when people translate Abernoghini, they say the thigh. But actually it's Mor the Wee without that. And we're talking about the sea estuary and the flood. So the fighting breaks out, and they now have the cauldron of rebirth. So what we're talking about, if you remember, the cauldron means anytime a warrior dies, he's brought back to life, only he's dumb. Now what Wilson and Blackett point out there is like the waves in the sea. There's an infinite number of waves that keep coming back. And I think you could argue that the waves right out in the sea are silent, as opposed to the ones crashing onto the beaches. Okay, so Felician, thinking himself responsible for the whole conflict, decided to lie down amongst the dead, and the two bare-bottomed Gwyddels came along and threw him into the cauldron. Inside, he stretched himself out until he finally burst the cauldron into 4 pieces, and he also broke his heart. This may be the formation of the 4 regions of the heavens. Okay, I'm not getting anywhere near this, am I? Right, to the aftermath. So there's all the names translated, so you can get the download. So what we have, the overall story of the names, all these names that are listed, they spelled a sentence. Anxiety resulting from winds and thunderstorms require that the bursting out or flooding at the present time is contained by building sea walls. So there's a very important message here. The sea walls protect against these floods that come in. Right, I'll just get a little bit about the Bran's head being cut off, because this is the next stage on the story. Because then Bran then orders his surviving followers to cut off his head, which again goes back to Bel Merodach, the Baal Marduk, back in the ancient Babylonian stories. His head has to be cut off to save his people. And in this case, he gets taken to White Hill in Llundain, London, and it's there, it's buried with his face facing towards Gore. And if you notice, they still have the ravens in the Tower of London. Of all the birds and all the things that could be in the Tower of London, you've got the one which in Welsh is Bran, and the ancient stories tell of Bran is going to defend Britain. So that's quite a thing as well. We've got some other stories then of invisibility cloaks, all this kind of stuff. God, there's so much here. I can't cover all this tonight, unfortunately. It's well worth reading, though, the Wilson and Blackett story of it. I'll cut to the sort of summary at the end. So the story is, we believe, inescapably an ancient creation story, at least an integral part. Can you look out for any questions here on as well? Yeah. Of the web of creation stories. The ancient origins of the British lie in the Chaldean coil Syria and in Egypt, has been amply demonstrated in the King Arthur conspiracy subtitled, and Moses in the hieroglyphs. They got the two migrations, and what you can see, well, it's important, as well as the story itself, is it shows how the same story exists in the Welsh stories as exists in the Babylonian stories. And why would those stories be the same? They must have got there somehow. And presumably they came with the people. So the story of Bran, who sacrificed himself and had his head cut off, is a mirror image of the ancient Chaldean story of Bel-Merodach, the son of the mighty creator god Ea, who sacrificed himself in combat with similar comet enemies, and who also ordered his followers to cut off his head. The blood of Merodach revitalized the earth. Ea or E became Yah or Yah, and then Yahweh and Jehovah. And they're simply developments of the same mighty creator god, whose son saved the safe order of the heavens and the earth from chaos. Same story again and again. I'm sure that... So this helps to identify Bran. Why is he doing that? The raven who died and left only his head to be buried as a destroyed and no longer extant planet. It's the thing I want to get into just quickly. We mentioned this before slightly. Is we have these two great asteroid belts. The main explanation, I think, if you check on this, is that these belts of tiny rocks are just floating around, waiting. Over a million years, they'll stick to each other through gravity and become planets. I mean, it does seem ridiculous, Far more likely is that the ancient stories are correct. And what actually has happened here is that planets have collided and smashed to smithereens, and they're still rotating around. One of the planets that's supposed to have been destroyed was a red planet, and one of the asteroid belts is red. So there's things like that. It doesn't make any sense. There's no other logical explanation for the asteroid belts. So the idea of the body of the god, who was a son of God, Ea, being broken up, is also an alarming parallel. So if you're into religion, it's also a disturbing story. The idea of the son being executed to save the earth is uncannily like the Christian story, isn't it? There's no avoiding it. So that doesn't make the church very happy, these kind of stories as well. So these stories have been really suppressed from all sides ever since they were written. So we have the idea of a son, the creator god, as the sacrifice saviour of the planet Earth. That's just what I just said. All right, then we get the same story appears in Osiris, whose body is shattered to pieces by his brother, god of darkness, Set. The most important surviving part of Osiris was his head, which was recovered and buried at Abydos. So it was with Bel-Merodach, and so it was with Bran. They all lose their head. They all get smashed, and they all come back. So Wilson and Blackett are asking, is this a demonstration that this must have happened within human memory times? It's been recorded, whether through verbally or through written stories. I mean, if we read Homer, this was happening whenever the Trojan War. I mean, where Wilson and Blackett showed about 650 BC, so we're talking only 2,500 years ago. These planets are still moving around, creating enormous trauma. So why has this been hidden? Why has these stories all disappeared? Well, the stories haven't, but why is this memory being wiped out? I think I'm going to read Velikovsky's book about the last one he wrote about the collective amnesia. So you got the Beowulf story. I'll do a separate little video on this one. He mentions Velikovsky. Yeah, so he says there, in the 1950s, Dr. Emanuel Velikovsky made himself hugely unpopular by postulating that the planet Venus may have entered the solar system in historical times, within the recorded memory of mankind. So he got absolutely crucified and slaughtered it. They also claim to show what the stars in the heavens will look like thousands or millions of years into the future with this mechanical thing. Well, all this is just so imagining if A, the planet Earth has shifted on its axis in the past, as it is well known to have done, from impeccable geological studies and from statements in as much ignored ancient histories, and B, if wandering planets or great comets have entered the solar system causing these disruptions. And then we can read through that there. So, there we go, before 10 o'clock, bit of a long one. Yes, I'm sorry I lost all the things I was going to show you then. I was going to do some pictures and stuff, but just wasn't ready, and then we had all the technical issues. But I think you get the idea from that, and the download is available from the website, okay? So I'm very interested to see the comments on that, because it is remarkable, isn't it, how many stories are around the world which all have this shared flood idea. I just want to say, if we're going to go look at we're going to go with the globe model here, the way Alan Wilson explains it, and I'm here to show his arguments, is that if you do have a spinning globe, the water will not sit evenly on the globe. This is the idea. So if it's spinning around this axis here, it'll bulge out in the centre due to the fact it's spinning fast there, whereas at the top it's not really spinning at all. It's just, once a day doing that. Whereas here it's supposed to be 1,000 miles an hour. So if this tilts and it seems to move by, 1 or 2 degrees, it's an enormous effect on things like the oceans. Because if that bulge moves by 1 degree, it's actually the bulge isn't moving, it's the planet that's moving, or within it. It's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy for it. It's almost like you got a band on your shoulder, like you're a beauty queen, or something like that. And it's a bit uncomfortable when you slide it down your arm a bit. No, that's a really bad analogy, isn't it? I can't think of a good analogy. But the bulge moves, so the physical evidence for this, we see all around us. If you look at the Mediterranean, for example, there are loads of harbours and ports which are up to 80 feet below the sea level. One of which is said to be the sort of Caesarea or Alexandria, which is built in Egypt. And that's was built by Antony and Cleopatra. So we're talking, recorded history, supposedly, 2,000 years ago. Well, that's 80 foot below the sea. It's hard to explain. We've got the sunken harbour outside Cardiff, the great stone harbour that's underwater, which I'm got to go and see this summer. There's loads of examples like this where it seems to drop by about 80 feet on this level. So there we are. So that's enough on that story for tonight. I wasn't sure how long it was going to run. They run very long, don't I? It's amazing. There's everything just collapsed. Right, look out a second, Arnie B. Just have a little read through here.
Yeah, I've been reading.
Yep, okay. So we got. I'm very, very, very interested to hear people's comments on this. Sorry, I was jumped in a little bit earlier. But, I want to see the comments about what we're discussing rather than everything had to fit one model and the conversation being dominated, so people understand that. Oh, thank you, Scarab City. Got it well done there. That's a terrible analogy. Yeah, thanks, Graham. It's a horrendous analogy, isn't it? Go on, give me a better one. If you had... I can't think of anything, really. If you had a... Why can't... If I told you what I'm trying to say, that's what I'm trying to say, isn't it? Imagine you had... I got it. There we are. Imagine you got a cup. There we are, a big cup with a ball in it, like an egg, like a ball. All right, if the ball moves, if the ball moves around, the egg's there. It's going to be hitting these edges. Are going to touch different parts of the ball. No, never mind. So this is about the recollection of events and passing information to future generations. Thank you, David. Yes, that's what we're trying to do here. What we're doing is passing through. You can almost say whether right or wrong is almost irrelevant, right? I mean, it's obviously being right or wrong has always got some relevance. The point of exploring these stories are not to refresh ideas of what we think the world is like or what we think. What we're trying to do is read the messages from the past, how they consider the world to be. They have recollected events here, terrible floods, terrible catastrophes, and they're passing that message on to us, and we have to take notice and read these messages and be aware. And maybe we should be more aware of what's happening in the night sky. Maybe we should be taking notice of it. Hopefully, everything's calmed down. We live in a much more stable system. It seems to be that way. And I'm certainly not here doing it the old trying to scare people. What's that thing that always interests me? There's a story which I always think there's far more to it that if we just think about it. You know the chicken licking story? I think everyone knows it, don't they? Saying the sky's falling down. Because it's supposed to be... I noticed when I was watching the Asterix cartoon... it's not all hardcore research. There's a lot in children's stories you have to pick up sometimes. They made a comment in there saying that druids were obsessed with the sky falling down. I wonder if it's an allusion to this, and chicken licking as well. Right, to play on names and words, Egyptians were known for their love of puns. Thank you, Marshall. Old Boy has asked, does Bran have anything to do with grandfather figure at all, anyone? I don't know how long ago he left the message. I'm not sure about that one. Yes, congratulations on the new book, Hugh Evans. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to see that. Arnie, how do I scroll down on there?
Use the little black...
I've got to drag it, do I?
Yeah,
It's not dragging very well. I'm going to mouse it. Oh, right. Okay, cool. Okay. I use 2 hands. Yeah, looking forward to that, Hugh. Looking forward to your presentations. Remember, folks, get down to South Wales, August 27th. Hugh and I will try and have the venue and the running order and everything confirmed by next weekend. The tickets will go on sale through the website, okay? What else we got here? Dragon King frame, apparently an observation about the Welsh party with Maddock by the... Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. There was one thing I wanted to mention. Oh, did you see I brought down the book, another King Arthur book. Another King Arthur book. Anyway, I'll review it next week. But another one, it's called King Arthur Died in America. Nope, can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head. Came out in 2016. Doesn't seem to have read any Wilson and Blackett, but it's got a lot of obvious parallels and a lot of big differences. And I wanted to talk about why the differences aren't really that important. And that's one of the videos I'm going to talk about. I think I'll just do it tomorrow or something in the week. It's too late now, but this is like throw the cat amongst the pigeons. The topic, I want people to have a little think about this, get their brains in gear before I'll try and do it tomorrow. I'll keep it short, is there's a big controversy about Wilson and Blackett. One of the things that's thrown at them, right, one of the constant bits of abuse, is that there's a big fuss about Arthur 1. We've got 2 Arthurs. Otherwise, they couldn't, one would have to live to 250 years old or something. And the big argument is that Wilson and Blackett have taken something which says Annwn and have taken it as Arnun, because Arnun sounds more like Arthur. Honestly, it's pathetic, right? But this is the thing. It's a spelling thing. I get hit over the head again and again and again. And it suddenly clicked to me last night, having deep thoughts, was that does it matter at all what Arthur 1's name was? There's one for you to think about. Does it matter if he was even called Arthur? So what do you think on that one? See if you can see where I'm coming from, all right? I bet there's people out there who can tell where I'm coming from already. Oh, the book's coming out later this year, isn't it, Hugh? Great. Wouldn't it be good if we get some copies ready for that live event, Hugh? I think that's impossible, but there we are. It's nice to give it a try. For some more... Right, so we got, there's another good example. See, Shermanator, there's 12,000-year-old stalactites at Tiwanaku. Again, see, how do they date these stalactites? Now, I know with stalactites, I know how they do it, but I mean, what they do is every drip adds, I don't know, 100th of a millimetre or something, and then they work it out over a year. Every year adds 1 centimetre. Therefore, if they're 10 centimetres, 10 years, a metre's going to be 100 years, kilometre's going to be 10,000 years, and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, life very rarely works like that. I know it's like sedimentary stuff where they say, well, there's so much dust gathers every year. Well, what really happens, you have a storm or something, and a huge amount will come in, and it may be nothing for 100 years. It's just, and it's the same with stalactites. There might be a period where, because of the what do they call them? Not chemicals. Oh, come on, the elements in the what's the words used? The salts and everything that's in the water that's being collected as it comes down. might come really quickly for a while. It might be really thick with the salts and add loads and loads of stalactites. Another time the water might come almost pure, or far less. There might be a dry period. I mean, it's, again, these things, stalactites are one of the better dating systems, I would say, though. Yes, so thank you for that. The genealogy of the Sphinx, that's what we're back to, right. What are we going to say? The geology of the Sphinx, Marshall, seems to suggest that Skook's dates are correct. Oh, I wish I'd seen this at the time. Marshall, can you put down what the dates you think they are for the Sphinx? Because I tend to set the Sphinx. I reckon the Sphinx, if I had to put my money on it, my guess would be, and this is where loads of people in the alternative history world just walk out the room, I think it might have been built about 500 years ago, maybe 600 years ago. So there you go. Orion is so important. Yes, I agree. Oh, Hugh written that, yes. Oh, yes, someone else has asked, what did tasted shoes have? Yes. Astarte means foam of the sea. Thank you, old boy. There we are. This ties in again, perhaps. So there we go. All right, so like I said, I couldn't do everything I wanted to do tonight because everything went wrong with the computers. But I hope everyone didn't mind sticking with us. More proof of the Bible. Noah, his wife, 3 sons, and there were 3 wives. Yes, one of the days, I've kept something up my sleeve for quite a while now, and I'm going to just share it on the video channels because goodness knows how all the books and everything's going to get done. And one is Wilson and Blackett's decoding of the Old Testament. This is going to be a book at some point. I was going to wait till the book was ready. My plan always with these things, okay, is here comes an amazing new book. I've read this. I'm like, wow, look at this. This is amazing. This is amazing. It's amazing. I do research, start putting the book together. And in an ideal world, you have this great big team. We get the book done fairly quickly. I do a video, say, look at this amazing new information. Isn't it fantastic? And you can buy the new book. And we crank them out every month. But working all hours, I mean, really, because, I've got family commitments and other things going on. And even with helpers, you've got volunteers and people typing. And we're doing our best. It's a big job getting the books out. So what I've realised is some bits of information, I'm not careful, they're not going to get out. So it's a constant... it's in one of the Mabinogi tales. It's a bit like chasing Rhiannon, you have this situation where the books and the videos are sort of chasing each other. You just want to get everything out there, and then we want to back it up as well. All right, I think you know what I mean. I'm a bit flustered today, aren't I? I'm not very calm. All right, so Marshall is saying that 10,500 years before Christ, Egypt was a lush paradise of lakes. The weathering of the Sphinx is vertical, so water made rather than wind made or horizontal. I'd agree with all of that, apart from the dates. I say I don't think it took 10,000 years for the climate to change. I think the climate changed quite dramatically when we have catastrophes. But hey, it's a good one to discuss and not fall out over and have a good fun striding. Right, Richard. See, Richard's a Welsh speaker as well. That's what really helps. Out of order to mutilate your in-laws' horses. Richard also say hang on, he said something else though I want to read. All right, well, I suggest anyone watching this have a scroll through the comments. All right, comments are usually very interesting. I have a look through afterwards. Here we go. I played Efnisian in a school play once. Complete sadist. Was that just your interpretation, Richard, or was the part meant to be played that way? This information is in the British Cymry by Reverend R.W. Morgan. Yes, I want to get back to those books. It's difficult for people who can't understand the basics of existence, Brad. I agree with you, Brad. This is how existence works and how we all came about is one of those, how can you answer that question? It's just one of those incredible, difficult ones, isn't it? You got the situation where you have... Well, one of the great books, if you probably all read it, is Everything You Think You Know Is Wrong. I've forgotten his name a second. What's his name? Pye. Lloyd Pye. P-Y-E. And he does a brilliant job in that book of explaining there's an enormous number of problems. The general false dichotomy is you have creationists against evolutionists. So the creationists spend all their time explaining why evolution doesn't work and do a very good job and destroy that theory. And the evolutionists do a really good job of destroying the theory of a God creating everything. So that what we should be doing is looking for the third alternative, which Lloyd Pye gives in great detail, but I don't particularly agree with his third alternative. But the way he shows we should look for one, I think is very important. Right, okay, it's gone 10 o'clock. I think I'm going to start packing things up. The Gunderstrop Cauldron departs this... Oh, right, okay, that's one we look into. Thank you for that, Mark Manning. Right, I can see there's so much chat, I can't possibly catch up with it all tonight. How Welsh history has been forgotten and how crucially important it is to the whole of the British Isles. Yes, you're quite right, Marshall. Old boy. We find a god in Cumbria. Oh, that's right, Old boy's got the Cumbrian knowledge, isn't he? Called Belatacadros and is associated with Mars. Right, there we go. Well, I hope people enjoyed the... Let me know, leave some feedback. Should we do more Mabinogi, more about the stars tying in? And so I'll have more pictures and things next time and the whole thing a bit slicker. But there's so many great stories. And the funny thing is, this is where I think, just to wrap up now, people who write these mainstream books like this should embrace this and not feel threatened by it, because I've kind of dabbled with Mabinogi stories all my life. And I had the children's version, which I read to the boys. Go through all the stories, a bit of fun. No big deal, you know. It's just a bit of fun and their academic interests. Well, as I say, their main interest always seems to be the style of the writing and can you date it from that and all this kind of thing. You know, this kind of secondary level, I would say, rather than actually looking at what the stories really mean and treating them seriously. But the great thing is, once you read the Wilson and Blackett notes on it and get into the subject, then suddenly this becomes avid reading. Suddenly this is like really interesting. And all these stories, I think if they're being, they really want these stories to come back to life, this would be a more interesting way of doing it. And the British history, you shouldn't be neglected. All right, so, well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a little bit disjointed this evening, so hope you managed. What about a live show? We just fire questions. I would love that, Pure Blood. I would love 5 questions away anytime you like. Tell you what, I will do special question and answer next week. So I'll put a thing up on Facebook and I'll put up a short video tomorrow where you can put all the questions in the comment and we can discuss them. And yeah, I don't mind getting comments on the night, questions on the night, but in advance is better because I have a chance to ask other people as well then what they think and what they know. So there we go. So I'm going to play us out, Arnie B.
Okay.
Past your bedtime. Oh, he loves it when I say that. You know, it's one way to wind up teenagers, isn't it? Just get a big lad now, be careful. Yeah. Right, we got any requests? Oh, the other ones? This must be bed. Oh, you can't say goodnight, Trevor, whenever you have. Make sure your dressing gown's on properly, yeah? Get me in trouble here. Yeah? I thought you gone to bed.
Oh, you just jumped my spot.
Yeah. I want to know about Odysseus. Ah, right, okay, Graham. You want to know more about Odysseus? All right, brilliant. Well, that's the Odyssey book is a big part of it in there. And the download's available. And there's last week's show as well. Okay, yeah, please say more about... Yeah, I got a lot more about Odysseus, actually. And not just the Odyssey journey. All right, that's a question I need to make. Here's my book of questions. Oh, that was part of the stuff that all just fell down the back way and not the camera flying. It's just not organised this week. I'm blaming you, Zavi.
Why?
Yeah, I'm just going to blame you. I'm going to blame someone.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If I don't blame someone, it means it's my fault, and we can't have that, can we? Okay, so please put up any more questions. Come on. We're gonna...
What would you like me to play?
Any requests for a closing song? It's going to be one that we probably know, which is probably not much pop stuff. You got a problem making the payment on the download. Oh, great. Thanks, Kerry. Yes, is your book nearly ready for release, Marshall? Yes, I got to do some editing on it as well, haven't I? I curse it deliberately. Thank you, Pure Blood. Right, thanks, everybody. Right, North Star, everyone. Good to see everyone. Wow, we got loads of people still online. Brilliant. Fantastic. So thanks for going through all that. I'm wheezing a bit this week as well, aren't I? Must be the hay fever. Pollen count must be up. I can see lots of messages pinging in here. Right, okay, what are you going to play?
No, what would you like me to
Play something Welsh, go on.
like, such as...
Do you think anything to do with water or floods? You don't know Bells of Aberdyfi, do you? That would be a good one.
No. Anything to do with water?
Um,
Anything to do with floods? No. Anything to do with water? No. Anything to do with floods? No. Anything to do with water? No. Anything to do with floods? 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 No. Anything to do with
All right, just play one of your pieces. Right, okay, so thank you very much for all who stayed there. Thank you. Which end of the boiled egg should we chop? Yeah, thank you, Taliesin. That's good. Funny enough, we're reading Gulliver's Travels as your bedtime story, aren't we? You're loving it, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, it's big enders and little enders. Very interesting, a bit of satire. Because that's another story if you look into it. That's nice, anyway. There's another story if you look into. There's some really deep satire in Gulliver's Travels. It's been very much tidied up for our versions. Quite feel like dancing now. Brought me back to life. Thank you, Arnie. You ready? Going to put your hand on the thing?
My job, that.
Oh, Arnie wants to do it. Oh, well, you can play us out then. We do all really slick, Arnie. You can play us out. Then we'll have the bells of Abu Dhabi. Hey, 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 hey. I like that. The bells of Abu Dhabi. Very good. Very funny. Stormy weather. Okay, thank you, Hippie Shake. Glad you enjoyed that. Right. You ready? Right, so I say good night to everyone. Hang on, I got to find the right button to press. Okay, we'll see you all. Like I said, I'll put those videos up the next couple of days, alright? Hopefully things calm down a bit. Until next time. Hedwig. Ah! Damn! Just. That wasn't locket flying. Oh. The next camera's coming out of your pocket, money. That's the end of it. Have you broken it?
What's long? No, I don't think I've broken it. Ooh, diamond pots. Mexican.
Wow, Diane Arnie. Oh, no stop up.